Hunger, a primal force that pushes every living creature to its limits. For early humans, who had just begun to master fire, build shelters, and craft simple tools, this hunger was a constant, gnawing companion. It drove them out of their caves, into the vast, untamed wilderness. But this time, they were not just fleeing from predators. They were not the prey. This time, they were learning to become the hunters. This is the story of humanity's first hunt, a monumental leap that would forever change our destiny and set us on the path to becoming the dominant species on Earth. It's a tale of courage, intelligence, and the birth of a strategy that has defined us for millennia. Before they could hunt, they had to learn. And the greatest teachers were the masters of the wild themselves. Our ancestors would spend countless hours, hidden in the tall grasses or perched on rocky outcrops, watching. They observed the patient stalk of a lioness, the coordinated attack of a wolf pack, the swift, deadly dive of an eagle. They saw how predators used the wind to mask their scent, how they exploited the terrain for cover, and how they waited, with unwavering focus, for the perfect moment to strike. Nature wasn't just a backdrop. It was a living classroom, and its lessons were written in the language of survival. Every movement, every chase, every successful kill was a chapter in their education. With the lessons of the predators etched into their minds, our ancestors began to decipher the subtle language of the wild. They started to see the world not just as a landscape, but as a map of stories. A set of hoofprints in the soft earth revealed the direction an animal was heading. A freshly broken twig told them how recently it had passed. They learned to distinguish the tracks of a deer from those of a wild boar, to gauge the size and even the health of an animal from the impressions it left behind. This was the birth of tracking. It was a painstaking, intellectual puzzle. Each clue was a piece, and fitting them together required immense concentration and a deep understanding of their environment. They were no longer just wandering. They were following a narrative, a trail leading them closer to their quarry. Knowing where the prey wasn't enough. They had to get close without being detected. This is where the art of stealth became their greatest weapon. They learned to walk heel to toe, silencing their footsteps. They mimicked the stillness of the rocks they hid behind, controlling their breathing, becoming one with the shadows. The rustle of a leaf, the snap of a twig, any unnatural sound could mean failure, sending their potential meal bolting into the distance. Silence was not just the absence of noise, it was a disciplined, active state of being. They developed an almost supernatural awareness of their own bodies and their impact on the environment. This profound quietness, this ability to blend in, was their first and most critical advantage. It was the invisible cloak that allowed them to close the gap between observer and hunter. Now, within striking distance, a new challenge emerged: how to deliver a decisive blow from afar. Their hands, which had so skillfully crafted tools for scraping and cutting, now learned to weaponize the world around them. They picked up stones, feeling their weight and balance. They sharpened sturdy branches into rudimentary spears. The first attempts were likely clumsy and frustrating. A stone would fly wide, a spear would fall short. But with every throw, they were learning. Their brains were calculating trajectory. Their muscles were memorizing the force needed. It was a process of trial and error, of constant refinement. Each successful hit, even on a tree or a distant rock, was a small victory, building muscle memory and confidence. This wasn't just about physical strength, it was the dawn of ballistics, the first time humans projected their will across a distance to interact with their world. They soon realized a hard truth: a single hunter, armed with only a sharpened stick or a stone, was often no match for the speed and strength of their prey. The failures taught them a vital lesson. The wolves they had observed didn't hunt alone. The lions worked together. Inspired by this, our ancestors began to form hunting parties. This was a massive cognitive leap. It required planning, communication, and trust. Using a series of hand signals and gestures, they developed strategies. One group might make noise to drive the prey in a certain direction, while another lay in silent ambush. They learned to anticipate each other's actions, to create a pincer movement, to corner their target. This wasn't just a group of individuals hunting together. It was a single, coordinated unit. Unity became their force multiplier. The strength of the pack was the hunter, and the strength of the hunter was the pack. Then came the moment. After countless failures, days of tracking, and hours of silent waiting, everything aligned. The plan worked. The ambush was perfect. The spears found their mark. A small antelope, perhaps, or a wild boar, was brought down. A wave of exhaustion, relief, and elation would have swept through the group. They had done it. They had faced the wilderness not as victims, but as victors. They gathered around their prize, the tangible proof of their skill and cooperation. This first successful hunt was more than just a meal. It was a rite of passage for our entire species. The cheers and celebration echoing through the savannah were not just sounds of triumph, but the announcement of a new power dynamic on Earth. Humanity had passed its greatest test. As they carried their prize back to camp, a new, profound instinct emerged. The food wasn't for the strongest or the fastest hunter alone. It was for everyone. The kill was divided and shared among the entire group, the hunters, the toolmakers, the children, the elders. This act of sharing was revolutionary. It fostered a sense of community and mutual dependency. It taught them compassion and a deep-seated respect for the life they had taken. They began to understand the delicate balance of their existence. To take from nature was to be a part of it, not to conquer it. This gratitude, this understanding that the survival of the individual depended on the well-being of the group, laid the foundation for social structures and the very essence of our humanity. Back at the camp, the fire, once used only for warmth and protection, took on a new, sacred role. The meat from the hunt was placed over the flames. As it cooked, a new, tantalizing aroma filled the air, the smell of roasting meat. This was a scent no human had ever experienced before. The act of cooking not only made the meat easier to digest and safer to eat, it unlocked more nutrients, fueling the growth of their increasingly complex brains. The first fire-cooked feast was a multi-sensory celebration. It was the taste of success, the warmth of community, and the smell of civilization. Gathering around the fire to share this meal was perhaps the first moment of true comfort and domesticity in human history. This monumental achievement wasn't just about filling their stomachs. Each step of the process was a micro-achievement that forged them into a more capable and sophisticated people. The hunt sharpened their senses and their minds. It strengthened social bonds and demanded leadership. The leaders weren't necessarily the strongest, but the wisest. Those who could read the tracks, devise the plan, and inspire cooperation. They gained an intimate knowledge of the ecosystem, understanding animal behaviors, plant properties, and the changing of the seasons. Hunting was a continuous cycle of learning, adapting, and innovating that accelerated human evolution in a way nothing had before. It was the engine of our cognitive and social development. Looking back, we see that the first hunt was not simply about killing for food. It was a profound lesson in balance. The balance between their gnawing hunger and the harmony of the ecosystem. The balance between the paralyzing fear of a dangerous world and the courage needed to face it. It taught our ancestors that to survive, they needed to be both predator and protector, fierce and compassionate, individual and community. This hunt wasn't just the beginning of man as a hunter. It was the beginning of man as a custodian of the world, a role we are still learning to fulfill today. And as our ancestors cleaned the bones of their kill, preparing them for the next meal, they noticed something. The bones were strong. The teeth were sharp. They could be shaped, sharpened, and carved. A new idea began to flicker in their minds, sparked by the remnants of their first great triumph. A new age of innovation was waiting just beyond the horizon. The age of bone tools and the very first stirrings of art. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time. If you were fascinated by the story of humanity's first hunt, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to ring the bell so you won't miss our next episode, where we explore how bone and ivory sparked a creative revolution. We'll see you next time.